all the time, but like Saturday night,
That's
we'll
great.
watch a
I'm gonna tell you
movie
right now, that's
downstairs and she'll have a glass of wine.
There's a clause in the charter
Total wine
that says
down there.
if the city manager thinks it's best
'Cause she's
to
down
go
there.
with a non-competitive
We went
contractor, they
on
can
their
do it.
site.
But
It's
state law
$100
says absolutely you
a
can't do
case.
it. Loudon's not a home rule. Loudon's just city charter.
55 were taxed.
It doesn't supersede state law. So I don't know.
Right when I was loading up, and I was like, if I could remote access, I would have access to it.
Ain't nobody. Let me tell you, the
Jim
people
sent
in
me.
the village didn't get here.
Put that on our agenda again for
How's it going?
What? I wonder what my solid waste.
What
What do you want to say?
Always something.
Oh, no. That's a good part.
No, you already said.
That's on the agenda Monday. I've got it on there, coming from planning commission, and their pick is your day. Because it fits all of their timelines where they have to have a 10-day notice and all that sort of stuff. So yes, that's on the agenda Monday.
And the little girl's
And
9
the
months.
vote will be,
Little girl.
or what I'll be asking for is that they move their meeting to such and such of a, whatever Monday, I don't know what it is.
He's going up quick.
You'll be asking
And to
me
work with you all, to try to come, you all don't have
And he's
any kind
smarter
of
and wittier
deadline.
every day. He's
What's
gonna have to
killing
talk about
them
next
is
week.
the 10-day public notice. That's what breaks their hump right there.
Oh, you're, okay. Okay, that's fine. I did not understand that part.
Is that what you saw, Kelly?
Oh, I know.
Some of this is mostly, a lot of it, here's what happened.
I thought that guy
Charlotte
this
teacher
morning
called
was
me
very
and said,
good.
Yeah, who's
32
charismatic?
kids in our classroom, and we need Andy for Valentine's Day. They had to have individually wrapped
Blue pen will travel.
for each kid. And I said, all right, I'll just get the whole thing. Don't worry about
Friday
it.
morning, 10 o'clock.
Did you get
I
it?
can't make the salary
And so I bought 32
this? Friday?
next
bags.
Thursday.
And then I had to write each kid's name.
Friday's Monday.
Well, on Amazon,
Can you put your jump drive
I
in
could
your
have
truck?
read the description, but I did not.
Like you were-
So on Amazon, it said, you know, box of candy. It was like $39. Candy. Like a small box, like this, it looked like this size. It was mine. It was like from there to here.
Okay, well maybe that's what we didn't understand. If you're connected to the internet, if that's how you need your internet. Okay, secret access what you need.
Okay, save for Halloween next year. Well, there you go.
Don't nobody.
Grand, that's
Every kid got a whole, I mean, a bag of candy and
That was the ideal.
we had so much left over.
I was thinking back.
I don't want to get rid
Yeah, I
of it.
figured
Take nice food.
You don't wanna.
That's not, that wasn't my preference. I mean, I don't care.
just strap on and hang on with your seatbelt, buddy.
That's my holiday.
Did you have a good birthday?
A little bit. We had American Legion meeting, so went over there. Updates, all that was good.
Well, I went to Virginia, sir, a year ago. I'm not saying my vote.
She don't solid waste. They're at 9. We wish we had home this morning.
Year after year after year.
We're on the road.
Yeah, 7:30. But I don't mind the 7:30.
How you doing?
Me and two other troopers.
I'm up, I've got my system every morning, I'm watching Wanted Dead or Alive.
Amazing. All on track to close.
Well, the way the prices are now.
Cheyenne.
Almost, well, I got both sides of each house, so technically it was.
You're a TV.
6 total transactions for 3 houses, yeah.
Do you watch it? Doesn't matter.
That is true.
Just old stuff again.
I was crazy.
I love it.
I thought
I love this.
Man,
I talked to a lady
You know,
today, her house
rain
pays
hat
for
on.
$340.
And Andy Griffith.
I never could have,
Andy
After
Griffith.
they all got them
I
fired.
never could have him be
It's
anything
gotta be,
but Andy
but
Griffith.
it's gotta be a black and white. It
I've
can't be a
had
color.
people walk up to my house, knock on the door, and ask my renters
What
if they sell it
happened
to them.
between
Well, they
black and
don't
white and color? I can't
asking them if
explain
they sell
it.
it. I just bought another house on the
Yeah.
street from the other one on Harrison. I already had
just sat
people call
there.
and text them
Somebody
back.
had
When is this house gonna be? It's a rental.
Everything was 1960,
I don't know, the last couple of years.
65 up to color,
There's 78 acres on there.
and they were never the same.
Which one? The ones that I watch.
Yeah, it's like a rental.
7.
Yeah,
Middle school,
Is
elementary school.
black and white. Cause nobody don't like them, they just play black
Family
and white.
does it because it's 78 acres.
TV land,
Me TV's
me TV,
John Cook.
I got AT&T, I don't know what you got.
Cook's a good builder. I've sold 2 of his houses in Telco Village. Good builder.
I was talking to them, I think they
Now, I'll
put
take
down
that.
an option,
Hang on.
whatever.
Yeah.
It'll be right
Really?
there. Just
But I'll tell you what,
right on, well, it'll be right off, right on 321.
Yeah, he built a good house.
That's because friends will bring the sewer line all the way down to 321 from Friends.
That's just more attractive to have people to not have to deal with septic.
All that, I talked to him, I said, I thought.
Tracy, online?
He told me, he said there were several
Yep.
entities out there.
Well, if we can get Kelly to get in her chair, we can get started. Open up the whole program.
Yeah, I can't open the drawer with the gavel in it,
Right
but
now, I'm sure.
I'm gonna call the Loudon County Workshop.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Moving right along.
Right along.
I'm gonna call it to order.
Good luck.
Tonight is one of the special nights. No public comments. I get to turn it over to Tracy Blair and the chairman of the Budget Committee, Mayor Bradshaw. So Tracy, you're on.
Don't look at me like that.
Why is that funny?
It wasn't, I was laughing at Adam, I don't know what you said, but take my laugh away from you.
You don't want me to repeat it either.
Okay.
Okay.
Has everybody got their budget books? Everybody got them?
I got mine right here.
I've got two.
Two.
I've
A
got
big one
mine.
and a little
Yeah,
one.
well, I thought about bringing it in, but
I didn't bring
That's
the
where
big
all my
one.
notes are on my big one, but,
That's
But
in
you
the
didn't bring it,
car.
hmm,
You didn't bring your big one.
no,
Mine's in my car if we need it, but I think we'll go through this one,
yeah, everything should be
right here.
up to date. If you look through your highlights on the first page, the, property tax
Okay,
with the redistribution, or I'm sorry, the reassessment that everybody was so fond of when it first started. It's close, we know we're close to $1.52, we know that's ballpark, we haven't got a certified rate from the state, but Tracy, correct me if I'm wrong on this, we talked about today, we can go ahead and pass the budget under close and adopt the certified rate as it comes in. We're close, am I right with that?
That is correct. You can adopt the appropriations resolution and the tax levy resolution in two separate meetings if you choose to do that. And the reason that you would choose to do that would be because you want to go on and set the budget, but we don't have the certified rate back yet from the state. Since I've been budget director, that hasn't been done. It's usually done at the same time. Kind of makes sense to do it at the same time, but it can be done separately.
Why is it taking so much longer this time?
Reappraisal.
It's reappraisal, and so the time frame
Appeals.
right now, it is very, very typical for reappraisal years. Of course, that only happens every 4 years. But.
We got it late, I think 4 years ago we got it in, it was kind of towards the end of the process.
It was, and that the technology?
But we've always voted on it at the same time, I thought.
Some information Buddy and Tracy aren't fully aware of yet. We just discovered earlier this evening, we're gonna have at least 2 commissioners not here on the 28th. So the thought that we may, if it works out, we may move it down to July 6th or something like that, which may give us a little more time to get our certified tax rate, and have them all at one meeting
If I can ask, will it be just that Monday or that entire week?
that entire week.
Now, I don't recall anybody changing any meetings for me last year. when I
You was
drove
one.
back.
If it's just one, we wouldn't change
When I-
it for you,
when I
but you
drove
came
from
back.
the beach. Yeah,
You came back.
but we're out too.
but now I've set my plans according to the 28th.
Just fly back. Man, with your kind of means, what problem is that?
you're gonna be out that week.
No, I'm gonna be here that week.
Are you on the week after?
Are you gone the week
Like
after,
July
Matt?
5th, 6th?
I don't know yet.
We're
That
gonna,
would be
we're
that
gonna
week of
address it
July.
Friday. We got budget meeting Friday morning, so we're gonna start trying to pin
We'll
it down.
try to
Like
sort
Tracy
it
says,
out.
if we can get the certified tax rate before we adopt, that sure does simplify everything.
So if the commissioners that are here tonight, if you can nail down when you're gonna be here and when you're not, to let Buddy know, so that when we meet Friday, we'll know. I already know I won't be here and Adam won't be here
For the
that
28th.
last week of June. And I apologize, but my family had been planning this
Sure.
before the budget started, so.
Okay,
And it doesn't mean that you can't do it with it.
Any other questions on the as far as the certified tax rate or anything goes? The educational capital projects, it will include the $200,000 adequate facilities tax and education capital projects. Some of that money has been shifted around a little bit to where it's been in the past, or at least last year, was used primarily for debt retirement. There will be a little bit more in there this year for projects and such. Sales tax, if y'all have read the emails that I've sent them out as I've gotten them, sales tax is through the roof, my goodness gracious.
So, Mayor, you're saying that you're requesting that this county commission pass the tax rate before you ever find out and hear what's in this, book?
No, sir. We know the tax rate's gonna be roughly $1.52, give or take a tenth or a hundredths or a thousandths of a penny, and I think it goes down so many digits. We know it's gonna be that. We're really close on what we went through with the budget process. We can pass the budget, and we know the penny's gonna be at $1.52 in the general area of $1.52, within a penny, really. And so it would surprise me if it was $1.53 or $1.51. That would really be shocking to me. And I think Mike's confident with it, but we can do the certified tax rate after we pass the budget, at a later date after we pass the budget. But it's still not gonna affect really where the money's going. The money is set where it is
So we're
set.
just passing one that don't count.
No, it counts, but just the certified tax rate will be the only one that's not, certified yet because we haven't got it from the state. And we may very well get it before then. But that's an option that we have, is to pass the budget, because we know what it's gonna be roughly. Now, we wouldn't vote on the certified tax rate, but specifically because if it's higher, if we vote, say we voted on the property tax rate being 151.60. If it was, if it was a 151, really, if it was a 151.50, we would have to have a public hearing, because that would qualify as a tax increase. It would shock me tremendously if it was less than $1.51 or higher than $1.52. So we know it's right in there somewhere. And so we don't have to do the certified tax rate beforehand, because we, general ballpark of where it's at. And I said, is this a special rule for this year because of COVID, Tracy, or is it just?
No, I think it's
Yeah,
typical.
typical. We just usually have the certified tax rate beforehand.
But we're not saying we're gonna do that yet.
We don't, not yet, but it's an option. If we get there and we still don't have certified tax rate.
Also, there was just discussion about the fact that the meeting might need to not be that last week of June. If the meeting moves forward, at which there's budget adoption, that just gives another week or however long it takes for that certified rate to be here. But then that wouldn't even be a consideration anyway. They could be done at the same time. And I don't know that there's any desire that they're not done at the same time.
No, and every year the comptroller really puts that push before July 1st, before July 1st.
Yeah, right.
And so I think they will push, I think they'll have certified tax rate before then, just from some heat from the comptroller's office. Although it would hurt me personally because we've never missed one, but that's just pride.
On the educational capital projects, so that we were able, like I said, to put 200,000 to restore that. We had moved all that money to debt service for the school last year and putting 200,000 back
in.
this year. I'd like, if the economy stays up, I'd like to eventually see that out where it was, where the schools get all the AFT for their capital projects.
We have the penny and a half that we put back, and also we'll be taking 2.5% from AFT from Lenore City for the next 4 years to,
That
that will help
200 is a good
offset.
place to start this year.
Better than that.
So back to the sales tax has been incredible. I mean, my goodness, I never imagined it being what it's turned out to be. We have taken some away from the recycling center because his sub-fund is incredible. He's actually gonna be able to hire one of his new employees, which is one of the new hires in the county, at no threat to general fund whatsoever, because he's just got that money and it keeps rolling in. One of the ones we always talk about is the appropriation for the Visitors Bureau. No relation to the hotel motel tax, a flat $120,000 appropriated to them. One of those things there, that's one of those when we, depending on how this goes, something we can look at when we start getting our money in from the federal government, that is one thing they're pushing for is, use that money to increase tourism, promote travel. Even if this does go through, I still would like to see commission and, maybe look at giving them a decent sized chunk of that money. And that would be a great way to make that, cost of living adjustment this year.
Are you talking about the 10 million from the federal government? You talking about the 10 million from the federal government?
Now, before I even get to the cost of living, they had, Harold could tell you, it was overload on federal grant, reassessment was a little bit, but redistricting and census was all over the TCSA last week. It was about more than you could handle at the end of it. One of the things about this 10 million, the state of Tennessee, the comptroller's office is offering to handle the money. We would draw it down. Now, we've not drawn down, we've not even attempted to draw it down yet, and they're
Have we
saying,
got
don't get
some
in a
now?
hurry.
We have not drawn.
Still nothing come
No,
We
yet.
have not.
So I gotta fill it out.
They didn't make it by May then, did they?
Yeah, it's available.
It's available.
But I've gotta put in my social security number and sign my kidney and tell my kids a way to get to it, just to make sure.
Do it first. Take one for the team.
But if we get the money, we draw it down, we turn it over to the state, and they will handle disbursement. Now, the one thing about that is, if they say, yes, you can use it on this project, we do it, we get it done, the federal government says, you're wrong, state would be on the hook for it. They would assume responsibility for the payback.
So the state is.
So we're out of it.
They would handle our disbursement. Now, the question is, gray area. If there's a project we think we can use it for, will the state let us have our money? And that question was asked and not a real solid answer.
Okay.
And so,
But I
but
think this is just a plan, a proposal. I don't think the state's got approval for this yet, have they? I went
My
back, after
impression
you sent
was-
that stuff, I went back and kind of researched it, and all I could find was this is what they're hoping will happen.
my impression was we could send it to them. They were kind of slaying in wait for it if we wanted to. Like I said, we've not drawn it down. The comptroller himself said, don't be in a hurry.
So the state's going to approve our request and
We
send
would
the
give them
money.
our money to approve. We'd be kind of like the teenage kid with the job, the parents still control the money over, even though he earns his own money.
Well, it turns into federal through state's what it does.
Mhm.
Instead of federal direct, which is a dangerous thing for anybody, it turns into federal, or federal through state, which is where 90% of all of our Fed grants come through is through the state.
And there's- and there's still-
Were they able to
1,000
clarify any of those? I know we went through it kind of quickly, when Van went through our last budget meeting on the $10 million and what you could do with it. Have they clarified that to any extent to?
Well, yes and no. We know we can't use it for new construction, yet you can use it for expansion.
Can you
Say
use it?
we wanted to expand at the Justice Center to bring those offices, spread those offices out some. I had a question, could we purchase the rescue squad property from them? And do we have to use fair market value, or could we buy it from them for a more amount, something they could maybe start a fire hall with? Utilities, internet's big. I asked if they would put together some sort of a task force because the state's pushing a big internet broadband expansion with this grant. Well, why can't we all work together and get the
I know
expansion
that,
out there?
of those three, that, sewer and water seem to be the three easiest things to,
And there's a push for use it for, increase tourism, expand, travel, encourage travel here and do tourism.
so you're feeling like the state's gonna be the,
Ultimately, it would be up to this commission, whether or not we used it, whether we get it,
we give it to the
whether we
state?
use it just on our own and assume we're not gonna cross the federal government, or we give it to the state and have that layer of insurance there.
Okay.
Cost of living adjustment, a little bit different. This year, full-time employees will receive a $1,000 annual wage increase, 2% for the part-timers. I think we're not losing our 25-year veterans, our 20-year veterans, we're losing our people that are starting off. And so I think that, this gives us an opportunity to give them a bump there. I think it affects how many people did you say, Van? It
About
affects
21 that's over 50,000.
Yeah, anybody over 50,000 will not get the same as the 2%. It'll be considerably more of a percentage point for those folks who are making 25 and 27,000. And my personal, they're the ones that need it the most. 6 additional employees that are recommended via the budget, 1 full-time in the assessor, or the property assessor's office, 1 in the county clerk's office, 1 in the recycling center. Like I said, that one is, he'll kind of pay that out of his sub-fund there, and he can fund that on his own without coming out of general fund. 3 full-time corrections officers at the jail, that was 3 out of a requested 8. There was also a request for 2 more criminal investigators, and how many patrolmen?
3.
3 more patrolmen as well.
Over $1 million, wasn't it, I believe?
It was,
900 and something, nearly $1 million.
yeah.
But now it's equivalent, I think, Henry, hadn't we kind of said that amount of money for 3, put them where you want to. If you want to put them in the jail, fine. If you want to put them upstairs in the sheriff's department, fine, but here's the X amount of dollars you're gonna get.
I think Chief Davis is coming back on Friday.
We cut the overtime from 275,000 down to this number, and hopefully that'll resolve some of their large overtime requests that they've had in the past.
Well, and that's a little misconstrued because they're working 4 shifts on 4, off 4. So there's gonna be every other week, there's gonna be 4 hours of overtime regardless, so. That should be an interesting conversation. $497,420 local government grant, one-time funding. It's kinda like the one we got last year, I guess, the 100,000, was it 100? Million,
It was $1 million.
yeah, $1 million grant, yeah. It's very similar. Did we ever decide if we moving it? We did move it, yeah.
400,000 of it transferred to the county general fund.
Yeah.
200,000 that's there for next year's project.
Yeah, for the next year's capital project. Some of that we had left over is into the general fund now, and some of this will be put in for the next year's capital projects as well. And like I said, I got ahead of myself. The $10 million coming from federal government, still a lot of questions. I mean, there's a lot of questions there. I said, no new construction, but supposedly you can use it for expansion of buildings. Utilities are pushing. Broadband's really a big push, so like I said.
I've had several contacts about, tasks. Could we not possibly give task money? And at the earliest conversation we talked about, currently, we're not allowed to be a pass-through. Is that correct?
That was a big question. How do we get Charter or Spectrum? How do we get them to put in internet? Because we can't just hand them.
Right, nor could we task, I mean, the same sort of thing, we have the money, can we give it to another utility, since we don't have any
I
utility?
think we can do the utilities.
Part of the argument is task is partially owned by Loudon County,
Yes,
right,
that's
Bill?
true.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, they're, Monroe and Loudon,
Monroe and Loudon.
Mr. Mayor,
so we may be able to do something with task.
Nick Pavlis at the time was the head guru for Charter.
He still is.
We were in agreement with them. They were gonna be putting a new building down on 72, if I remember going back correctly. And that was going to have a better way of communicating and better relationship. And all of a sudden it just blew up. And we've not had a contract with them in probably, 15 years.
Well, I'm thinking, just outside the box, I'm thinking, maybe we contract with Charter or whoever, so whatever services, wherever it's needed, and say, hey, waste the line.
Let me
premise
help you,
for
about
$1 a
5
year.
miles of charter will be you $10 million.
It's about, what is it? It's,
That's gonna be real expensive. I'm
30,
less interested in charter than I would be one of our local utilities.
I have to
Yeah.
agree with the utility decision.
I just want these folks to get internet. I could care less if more strolls down, rolls it out, and gives it, just as long as they get it. That's one of the hottest topics around. I just use Charter as an example. There's something else I forgot. Totally drew a blank. All right. Any questions over any of it for tonight?
I'll make one notation that's not in the highlights that probably could have made the highlights, may as well get it now. One of the proposals by the budget committee was to reduce the Lenore City portion of AFT by 2.5% over, 4 years, we decide 4 years, and take it from 15 to 5%. That'd be more coming back to the county school system.
And one of the topics
From
there
the
was their fund balance was one of the topics there as well.
From the city's money.
It's about 10
No, the city doesn't have any money, this is money we give the city. It's not their money. We donate it to them.
So you will quit donating it? Is that what you're saying?
Probably they won't lose anything over 4 years at the rate the AFT is growing.
Well, how can you take 5% away and then not lose anything?
Well, I'll tell you 5%, it's 2.5% for 4 years each year. Yeah, I saw Jeremy making a note back there. He got that.
Most, if you go, just looking through the tabs, General Fund 101, like I said, this budget is solid, when we started, we gave out an extra 2 to the sheriff's department 2 years ago. If somebody told me we would be sitting where we're at today, I told them they were either drunk or stupid, but I didn't think there was any way possible. We're gonna end up putting, I don't know how much we'll put back. We're either gonna be even or putting some money back into 101 for our coffers this year. Coming out of these incredible sales tax numbers, of course, we always do great with our tax collections as well. Courthouse and our jail, tab number 4, it is what it is. Number 5, our solid waste recycling. He is just, of course, he's based on sales tax. We reduced some of his and he continues to roll it in. Number 6, it is what it is. 7 is some of the American Rescue Plan, and of course, the county drug and federal drug fund. 131, maintenance of effort was matched. General purpose school. The school is getting, that's what I need to touch a little bit on. We shifted a penny and a half. We had 3 pennies left when we got done with this budget. About roughly 2.9,
Yes.
roughly 3. we shifted over. Now, one thing to keep in mind, it's not gonna be quite what I thought, because ADA has swung about 2 points towards the Lenore City school system. So that's gonna reduce that a little bit from where we originally were at. Now, there's a couple of options. We can reduce what we put back into the county, or we can reduce what we give over to the schools. Is that fair to say?
That is-
That's an option we'll probably discuss on Friday to see what we
Tinker,
choose to do.
tell us how they picked up 2% on the ADA. We didn't lose. How did they pick up 2% more? What, is it their online stuff they're
That would
doing?
that'd be my guess. And I mean, that's the only,
That's a
We
big
haven't
swing.
lost that huge of a number,
Yeah.
and there's always a little shift, but man, when it come in this time, whoo.
How's that online? I thought if you wanted to do online schooling, it had to be done through the state. There was no way a system could offer both.
they would have a school number for their online school, which they have applied for this year and
It's
received.
like a separate school.
And they get to count that in their
Didn't they
ADA.
start that last year
So
or
they could live,
before
so they could
COVID
live
really hit?
in Nashville and attend Lenore City.
You can live anywhere in the world.
They could be in California or India or England and sign up for Lenore City's online class. Is that right, Mike?
Yes.
And the state of Tennessee would recognize them as a student of Lenore City School System.
And it never had to be enrolled prior.
As a butt in the seat. They look at that as a butt in the seat is the old phrase for getting BEP money. Something just wrong with that picture. So they're picking up a big, Tracy, take a shot at how much more money they're getting out of BEP now.
Out of BEP,
Yeah, with that extra 2%.
I can take a shot at how much they're getting from local
Yeah,
money. $400,000 or $500,000.
think they're nearly $500,000 more.
And that's just a transfer because of this virtual school?
Yep.
But at some point, somebody's gonna wake up to that in national and say that ain't right.
So Tasser's coming up in June. I'm gonna ask it to be.
We got anybody lobbying on anything like that, Mike? Have you heard any conversations about it?
So they really encouraged it instead of, and more than discouraged it, in my opinion, this year.
Really?
So how do you?
With the no, I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry.
Because, you know, when we did our virtual schooling this year, we could have kids who wanted to stay at home and do online schooling, but we didn't have to have a separate school. They're not allowing that going forward anymore. And there are a couple of reasons why some very large systems in Nashville and Memphis kind of snubbed their nose to them and said, we'll just kind of maybe do what we want to do. And so this is a way of saying no one's going to use that program unless you have an online school. And so now there are several places who did not have it before that are going to have one now. And then you see that they'll advertise for, come and join the online program. I mean, that's what it's for.
And the
What-
county has to supplement that.
Essentially. What does our enrollment look like, ADA, which one you'll call it, based on last year, through the pandemic, we're through now this year, and
Well, we won't know that until we get back enrolled, because we had a lot of kids who, if they didn't choose virtual, that went to homeschool.
Okay.
We're down about 100, we had about 140 go homeschool, so I'm curious to see how many of those decide to transition.
Well, we picked back up from the height of the
Yeah.
pandemic then, didn't we?
Yes, we did. Yeah, we came way back
We're
up.
ending stronger than we started. Yes.
Good, good.
And Mr. Mayor, I think also it's important for this commission to know the additional penny and a half that we put back in 101, we put it back in sort of having it as a piggy bank, because if you look at the price of gas and food and other things like this and things that are coming down the road, we just put it back as a cushion in case we do need that, and if not, then we can move it hopefully to maybe education or something like that in the future.
Okay, maybe I need to address the penny and a half.
You better.
It's something.
Before we all end up spending it.
Before we all end up spending it.
I think it's done.
Because Commissioner Mears is correct. The mayor alluded just a minute ago that the budget committee got to a point that there were about 3 property tax pennies left. It was 2.9 cents or something like that. Left, meaning the pennies had been distributed according in all the funds. And,
To meet MOE on everything.
yeah, to meet maintenance of effort. And, at that point, the Board of Ed, I was showing that they would get the same amount of property tax that they were getting in current year. And there's almost 3 pennies left. So the Budget Committee's recommendation was half of that to county general fund, half to general purpose school. But the fact was that, at that point in time, I hadn't changed the ADA. So the ADA that I was showing was the old ADA before this loss of students.
The percentage between Lenore City and
I
Loudon
was
County.
showing the old ADA. So, once I realized that, and I changed the ADA, it took part of those leftover 3 pennies for the Board of Ed to get the same amount, because it's Swamport, Lenore City. Does that make sense? Okay. So what was left was like 1.1 or 1.2 pennies. It's in your highlights. I think it's 1.2 pennies or something. That's what was left. So that's one of the things that the Budget Committee needs to make a recommendation on Friday. Your proposal shows that 1.2 pennies going to education, because they had previously said, okay, 1.5 pennies to education. But they need to give me a motion on that. So when I realized that, I sent an email out to all members of the Budget Committee, letting them know, okay, this is one of the things that we have to look at to make sure that that's what you want to do. Because of the ADA, the change in the ADA, it took part of those leftover pennies to give the Board of Ed the same amount of revenue that they had in the current year.
But in layman's terms, the 1.5 pennies is gonna give county school, Loudon County School, about $240,000 a year. But you're telling me, based on the ADA, we're gonna send an additional $400,000 basically to Lenore City because they've decided to do an online school.
Well, it's the ADA numbers that we got from the state that Lenore City's, their percentage increased and the county's percentage of total students decreased. And because of that, well, like I just explained, it took more of those property tax pennies for the county to meet their maintenance of effort toward our own school system, because that's where the county's obligation is. The obligation for commission is not to Lenore City schools, it's to county schools. So it took more of those pennies for the county to meet their own MOE. Well, more of those, so Lenore City is still getting a larger percentage of that, so Lenore City will end up getting more
So
money.
we just need to make a recommendation on what to do with that 1.2 pennies. Friday,
Yes.
It might be a good
I'll
time.
make a recommendation
give it to school,
to cut some of that
AFT.
AFT to Lenore City now.
It's there.
We're doing that this year,
Right.
200%.
We can cut it off, we want to, one fell swoop.
I don't know that that's fair, but it's sure not fair to increase the county school by 240,000 and send 400,000.
Well, and the amount they get's not, I don't know, it's not a huge amount.
150, I believe
But-
what it was.
That's something else, that is AFT, and I'm not advocating one way or the other. You can pull that penny, what is recouped from the AFT, you can replace a penny, or a percentage of a penny in AFT as well. Again, I'm not advocating either way.
If anybody wants to know, this fiscal year, total AFT collections countywide, 1.246 million. The county of 85%, that's us, we got $1,059,000. Lenore City got 186, right at $187,000. That's through May.
That's current.
Yes.
Okay.
That's as current as I got.
And
This
that's-
might be a good time to talk about also, because it all intermingles, the value of the penny, the massive increase in the value of the penny, and how that all works into when we're talking about a penny. I mean, the penny just went,
The penny value went from total 100%, 185,000 to 225,000.
I've never seen that much of an increase in the penny value, but that's what happened because our appraisals went way up this time. Normally, it might be, 10,000, maybe a little less, a little more, but $40,000 increase in the value of the penny is just incredible. So when we talk about pennies going places now, they have more value now than they've had in the past, which is a a big plus.
Well, that's one thing, you know, me and Harold was talking to folks up there last week, and it just blew their mind. We even had one commissioner from another county in Middle Tennessee tell us we was doing it wrong. So,
And what's his tax rate?
it's almost $3, I
There you
think,
go.
for about an $8,000 penny.
Successful zoning policies, my friend.
Mr. Mayor, I will say this budget committee, I think this is my 12th one, and this has been, we worked together, we didn't all agree, but we agreed.
He looked right at me when he said that.
Well,
Most of the time.
but everything came out in favor of what is gonna be best for the county.
Well, I hate the ADA swing. I think this budget where we've landed at with COVID and everything involved is a product of the last several years of being very fiscally conservative. And I think that's saved us, that's put us in a spot where, you know, we were talking about maybe even a property tax increase 2 years ago when we gave the sheriff's department that. We've absorbed that. We've absorbed the loss of the hall income tax. You know, it's been, you know, if we hadn't had to build jail expansion, my goodness, we'd be sitting pretty. And we're still sitting pretty. I wasn't gonna say that, but we're still sitting pretty. I mean, the $225,000 tax penny for a county this size is incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, my goodness. Our tax rate's gonna be bottom 5 of the state, and I take exception with that because a lot of those below us have special schools
That's
districts,
right.
so it doesn't count for them. I know Gibson County's the lowest, but every one of their schools is in special school districts, so they pay those taxes separate. The ADA is my one heartburn through this thing, the way it swung 2%.
Can I say something, buddy?
Absolutely.
So, and I understand all of that, and I'm very, you know, conservative spender as well. It's just, you know, sometimes you may put the director of schools kind of in an awkward situation when, you know, they said, you know, we'll support you, go get that raise, and then, you know, for the teachers, and then he goes to his board and says that, you know, looks like the county commission will be supportive if we, you know, give a raise later. And I mean, I understand, you know, you gotta be conservative with the money, but it's just, you know, puts them in a tough spot.
Sure. Well, like I said, that $400,000, $500,000 swing to the LCBOE, that hurt. I got no lies to tell, because you know, that was part that was gonna be in with growth, as well as the penny and a half we moved, well, with recognition of the sales tax coming in. That was that's kind of the fly in the ointment, so to speak, because that put a damper on that. To me, I'm very proud of this budget, but again, I think we had a great plan where we could really hook the schools up, take care of the schools, and set up for future success. And I think that's put a burden. Like I said,
But I think,
2% swing is incredible.
I think we have to readdress that 400,000. I agree with Commissioner Tinker. I think, you know, we sat in that room and we talked about going out and getting that. I appreciate the penny and a half, and we got him up to 280, but we're $200,000 short.
What about when, when you went down Tracy and talked to
240.
Chris and where that, try to explain that to us again, if you would, over how that would help them be able to generate additional revenue, I believe this year as well.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure what you're referring to.
When you had a discussion with, Chad, rather, I'm sorry, and it was over specific amounts that would help them.
Reducing expenditures.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
that also was gonna be additional revenue as well.
Well, I actually talked to Chad again today, and those reductions in expenditures, I guess, will be presented at your next board meeting in current year budget. I don't think they've been presented yet, but
Okay.
they will be. However, that won't generate new revenue. That was just done to get the budget closer to what actuals would be, which helps the fund balance as we turn the paperwork in to meet the 3%. that doesn't give them additional revenue at all. It was just a way that the fund balance and submittal of the budget could be, helped, assisted.
Let me
But
share
that's
this.
not new revenue.
Can I say one more
Sure.
thing? I don't want
Yeah.
my position to be taken incorrectly. You know, if we're able to get, or if the school system was able to get the 1.2 pennies that's left, correct? That's all of the three. And, you know, there's some effort being made to go into maintenance of effort, you know, some of that money. Aside from the, you know, Lenore cities.
We're adding $1 million to your maintenance
Well,
effort
and
this year.
I'm getting there to that too. And that, you know, the money was added so that we're able to, money that we would normally receive was added into our maintenance efforts for budgeting purposes, which is a big help also. And so I do, from my position here, you know, recognize that and appreciate those efforts. So I think a real effort by the budget committee was made. It just, you know, I'm not saying, and I'm not speaking for anybody else, you know, with that to seem that way either, because I'm sure he wouldn't say anything at all. But I just, you know, I don't want to see him put in a bad spot, you know what I mean? But I appreciate the efforts that have been made up to this point, and hopefully on Friday will continue to be. I think we're going in the right direction, and I think the school board and county commission have a better relationship now than they've had in a long time, you know, because of the work that he's done and the sharing of information that's been out there, and so I don't want to kind of throw a wet towel on that either. I just, you know.
Matt is being very nice about it, but we talked about this in the budget meeting, and again, I'm only speaking for me, cause, you know, we talked a little bit, you know, my expectation based on what we did last year was a standalone, independent promise to the school system, or some of us, that we would cover the $500 and something thousand that they took of their money to give the employees a raise. And, you know, my feeling was that, you know, that's regardless of how much sales taxes come in and how much more's come in, I always viewed that as an independent promise that should have been taken care of on top of what they got additionally. And Matt was being real nice in what he said.
Tracy?
But, you know, I'm not going, you know, that's just my feeling on that.
Well, I never imagined
But can I say one more
$500,000
thing?
being jerked out from
And-
underneath. That's just-
But we have to have a budget, okay? And nobody wants to do a tax increase. I just, you know, if you talk to, you know, if you see the school board members or something sometime, you might want to say, you know, we're giving it our best effort and it, you know, he wasn't pulling your leg or, you know, trying to get anything out, you know, that they weren't, that we all want to work together and continue to grow as we do.
One of the things that Tracy handed out to us, not handed out to us, she put, listen to me, Tracy.
Hang on.
She put on this beautiful PowerPoint presentation that you can't get a copy of because it's copyrighted. But it's got a 10-year fund balance for us, the highway department, and the board of education. And of course, we live all the time on the paper budget. This is the real numbers. And I'll be honest, I was really, really pleased to see, the highway department still, it don't matter. But 2020, we started out the county side with 8.3 fund balance. The school started out with 5.5 million fund balance. So based on what we'd heard on paper and that sort of stuff, that sure helps.
I'm not saying to do that.
Tracy?
I think.
They're having, hey, Bill, having little private meetings.
Uh-oh,
You remember?
sunshine.
We're solving problems. We're Tracy solving problems.
They have a lot of private meetings during the budget committee meeting. We stop and eat raisins and crap when they're doing
See,
that.
but tonight we can do to Tracy what she usually does. That's when,
Private meetings.
when she puts all this out there, and now that you've all voted, let me say this.
That's right, that's right. Here's why
Tracy,
you
one-
can't do that.
That's good, but here's why you shouldn't vote on it.
Tracy, tell me what the MOE for the school system went up in this budget.
$1 million.
You mean how much it increased?
Yes.
It increased, I think it's $740,000 as a result. Well, it will, commission will take action on that Monday. But that is as a result of adjusting the revenue budgets that are associated with maintenance of effort. The Board of Ed approved it, commission will consider approving it on Monday, Budget Committee recommends it. That does not give the Board of Education additional revenue, additional up and above what they were getting. It just makes the budgets closer to what they were getting.
Yeah,
So
but
that
because
did
it's,
increase MOE.
because it's MOE, it stays until
It stays
death do us.
there.
And if the budget passes, penny and a half
That's right.
will be added to that, so you're another 2 or 3, whatever,
Well,
100,000
1.2, correct?
1.2 pennies, because remember, it took more pennies just to
Yeah.
become the same.
Yeah, I understand
And
that.
that's about 100 and,
No, no, that's
One
not
point
five
two.
hundred.
that's about $164,000 for the
So
school.
900
That's
to
still not the
$950,000.
$500,000 we promised, right?
That's
Just wanna make sure I'm
$164,000 up
Can
above.
I ask one more question about the 3 pennies? So there were 3, we're gonna split 1.5, 1.5.
Tell Lenore.
Okay, and then you got that, so how much is left now? 2.4 or 1.2?
1.2.
Okay, so
You're
it
getting
would,
it all.
it would either all go over to, or it'd be
Lenore
0.6.
City got
And you're getting,
almost.
Yeah, well, you guys haven't voted on that yet, that was kind of just a question, you know, like where are
No,
you leaning to?
the county general won't get any out of it.
The
When it was 3, we
1.2.
were gonna split.
Okay.
Now that it's all just that, we're giving it all to the school.
And you know, and I'm supportive of the efforts and the 200,000, 100,000 and the 164,000 and the maintenance of effort increase. You, just maybe, you know, keep that in mind as we work on next year's, that we ran a little
I think
out
every
this
year we try to just continue to add a little more and add a little more.
Okay, I need to get something straight here.
Well, they're having a private meeting right now, you'll need to wait.
yeah.
We got used to this during budget, it was regular.
Oh,
I would mention while we're having a commercial break here, one budget member accused me of being the body orifice during the meeting one day. Well, he just came back in the room, but yeah,
I'll agree,
that's the.
whenever that was,
You're gonna give it a second?
coming down. No, it's a tough thing to do, I understand.
Buddy, I can't understand.
Wait a minute, there's two more.
okay, Tracy, can I get some
can't
clarification on
understand.
the 3 pennies?
And that's on
Right, that meeting you and I sat in, they
After
told the
I
state
got through with the
people
budget,
was
there were 3
talking
pennies,
about
correct?
how many millions of dollars,
Okay.
and it was way up
We
there.
took the 3,
That is going to go to us at the local level. And here, we're sitting here this afternoon talking about raising the taxes. How come you have to raise the taxes?
Ain't nobody raising
Talking about the
taxes.
10 million,
Well, that's what he said.
are you talking about the 10 million from the federal government?
Well, they was
Yes.
talking, that was one of them, but they was talking about a whole bunch of stuff. And, you know, everybody was so happy, they thought they was, that we was getting all of this state money coming in. And I don't hear any of that here this afternoon.
Well, we got an additional
Almost half a million.
almost a $500,000 from the state that we slid.
Okay, got here.
We had the original million, we had what was left of it, which was $600,000. We moved it, 400 of that into county general. Cause we sat on it, we knew where it was at, what we were spending it on.
Southern.
And we put the other, we put it directly in,
The other
in capital.
200.
The other 200 is in capital with it.
Half the problem.
And so, and with the federal money, we've not even touched the federal grant yet. We've not even drew it down or even filled out
But
the
it's
paperwork.
coming though, they say.
But they won't tell us how we can spend it. They're very, I mean, they'll tell us some things, but as far as having a black and white picture of, and some concise direction,
But they're working on
yes,
telling us
they are
that.
with it, yes. And
So
then,
it is coming. I mean, it's not something that's not coming. They
but
said
now
it was
they're not
coming.
wanting it, my understanding is it can't be used as a crutch like the $1 million the state gave
It's
out.
got sideboards on it.
The, We can use it for some expansion stuff. As far as using a crutch for a budget, they've not said that yet, but of course it's political. As they figure out these red states aren't drawing it down and using it, they will, I think, they will eventually say, you know what, we probably ought to loosen these up a little bit.
It'll be redirected.
That's all about the 2022
It'll be
election.
redirected
What happened
to
on
states
the
like California, New York, New Jersey,
Yep.
that wanted
That's what it's
bailouts.
for, yeah, I mean, right now,
That's
that's what
exactly
it
what
is
it's
for right
built
now.
for.
That's
Cause
what happened on the last.
when
so
you
we
look-
really just changed the conversations.
It's your it's designed right now for your New Yorks, your San Francisco.
When you look at that paperwork, you can say, well, we don't fall, you know, that's not us, that's not us, that's not us, but it sure is
And I think
the other
as-
places.
I think as they try to keep the House and Senate in 2022 elections, midterms, I think that they will loosen those up because the red state, they're going to want the red states as well.
Didn't the state and the feds unload some money on the school system?
They got 6 million, right?
There you go.
They got more ties than ours do.
Okay.
I did have a question about the 3 pennies. Okay, the 3 pennies, you split them in half, then county got, or we kept 1.5 and you gave 1.5 to the schools, is that correct?
That's right.
Yes, but because the ADA numbers came in differently, we had to trickle some of those 1.5 pennies off of it. You had to
Well, it
trickle a
ended up
little.
being all but 1.2 pennies is all that's left.
Almost half of it, almost half, a little over half of the three went to Lenore City.
Okay, so,
They'll get 1.8 basically, and we'll get 1.2.
okay.
And that's not a good way to, I mean,
That's
if we're
fair.
dealing with the 3 pennies, that's it, but it's more complicated than that. But that's essentially, if you're just focusing on those 3 pennies, that's the breakdown.
They got 1.8, Lenore City did.
So,
Out of the bigger, because you have to take the whole,
Yeah, I know.
contribution, okay.
Yeah, I understand that, I know that.
I just feel like we're putting a lot of people in a precarious situation because we made a promise that we're not keeping, and
Well, like I said, coming into this thing, you know, with the extra penny and a half and the growth that we recognized and we were close. We were pretty spot on. Like I said, well, we've lost 400,000 of it. It's been jerked out from underneath us, and, you know, we didn't know it till today. We'd have probably addressed things a little bit differently beforehand. Like the day the ADA numbers come down, and you know, that's about 3.5 pennies that shifted all of a sudden.
Cost efficient for online school.
You count our pennies are what?
220 at 98% on our side.
You
Yeah,
can't.
so,
And Buddy,
yeah, I hear that, and I hear
about
you.
2.5, 3 pennies.
I just feel bad about it. I mean, it's one of those.
and that, as a
Yeah.
commissioner and working for the Board of Ed, you know, sometimes, it's difficult, you know, but I definitely make my decisions here based on what I think is best for the county and what our constituents would want, and no one wants to see a property tax increase, and especially with our housing prices, values going up as they did, and nobody else is getting a whole bunch of stuff. If it had been another year where $2 million went to the sheriff's department or something, I might, you know, have my feelings hurt a little bit, but.
We've been there before, hadn't we?
Yeah, my feelings were hurt then, but, you know, I think we're getting I think the county's getting a good budget, seems like, and the schools are getting some assistance, and the relationship is good, and I want to just keep moving in that direction.
But how much did we out of that, because we promised so much money to the schools?
Mhm.
So how much are we lacking?
I
And
mean-
not meeting that obligation?
$400,000.
But if you look, I think, if you look at the next 4 years and we do 2.5% per year on AFT.
Yeah, but
That would be additional revenue that could be utilized,
Yeah, that goes into a different line though, and,
but it could be a
and
help.
and I don't want to rob Peter to pay Paul. You know, that's all, I don't want to take from Lenore City to give to somebody else, because we all live, you know, in the same community and are wanting all need facility maintenance and stuff. I'm just, but as long as we, in my opinion, and I'm just one person and one vote and in charge of nothing, if we are, you know, if we keep moving in that direction with the growth, then, and like I've said in years past, if the school system, I'll quit saying we, if the school system had gotten growth over years past, it wouldn't be an issue at this point. So, the director and the school board has done a great job with the budget, you know, trying to, there's been cuts like you were talking about, Ms. Blair, and, where they could be, and you saw that in the end balances that the new director has had, and if we continue to go and we continue to get growth, then shouldn't be a big need in the future, hopefully.
It'll be interesting though, if these lawsuits that are initiated by, I believe, Nashville and Memphis, currently right now, the state is paying 49.6% to the schools in the state. If that's revised and there's additions, there should be a lot more revenue coming from the state and not putting a burden on as many of the counties as we're currently seeing. But something's gotta happen, because right now, education in Tennessee is a champagne taste on a beer budget about what it amounts to.
Let me throw a little bit of cold water out there, maybe not. The sheriff's department, Mr. Tinker's original request was for about $960,000 or something. 2 years ago, we gave them 26 corrections officers and a total of 6 upstairs. That include SROs, court, and 3 deputies, I believe. This year, his request was for 8 corrections, and then another 5 various things upstairs. We have, the way I understood what we did in the budget committee, we said, okay, here's X amount of dollars, spend them how you want to. Well, Mr. Davis / Sheriff, I don't know who's coming, I guess Jimmy's coming Friday, and is gonna be very insistent that they've got to have all of those, and I don't know what the outcome of that'll be, so I guess throwing cold water isn't the proper thing to say, but many of you all may hear from people that we're not doing what we should, but we feel, I felt comfortable as a budget committee member that we have been very, very well supportive financially of the new jail, new employees, all that sort of stuff, so.
Over the years, I think they've gotten the lion's share.
They've done well.
I would like to say one thing. I think one thing that we need to really look at for the budget next year too, and look at things is the fact that our county is growing and we're getting so many more people in this area, but we're putting a damper on some of our elected officials' offices. And I'm gonna speak up and say, for one, I know Carrie's office is overwhelmed. And, I mean, they've got police out here now trying to, unblock the street because they're lined up all the way down. And I deal with that about at least twice a week. And I know that their office is very much overwhelmed, and that's an issue we're gonna have to address.
I will bring this up, and my hat's off to Mr. Schaefer. He even mentioned the possibility of looking at a satellite office on the north end for her office.
Well, and that takes
More employees.
That takes
Training.
Take 2
It
years.
does, it takes employees
2 years.
and it takes training. And I think those girls down there are getting so overwhelmed, they're not even able to train new employees that come in because we've got so many people in that office, you know.
And the fact the space is confined.
There is no space, that's true.
What'd she tell you, 2 years, man?
I met with Tammy and Carrie. My hope was to have an upper end office by January 1st of 2022. Is what I was hoping. A tag, a license tag, nothing, not full service, but where you could do license tag. Because when I come here, I see the lines outside, inside both. And my thinking is, okay, if you've got an upper end one, you're gonna take an enormous amount of traffic out of down here for just the tags, if nothing else. I met with Tammy and Carrie, and both thought that sounded like a real good idea, except no way possible to start it by January 2022. It would take 2 years. So that kind of slowed us back on that one a little bit, but at some point in time, we need to do an upper end office.
Well, I think it's a little closer time than we need. We don't need to be putting it off, and we don't need to be looking at putting a lot of stuff down the road here, because their office is just
I mean, they were the ones that said 2 years, it wasn't me.
I know, but
Well, it's the training
You've
of
got-
employees.
the training of the employees,
It's just
yeah,
very
and
complex.
the training of the employees is really getting her due. I mean, that takes a lot of time. There's a lot of different
Nothing is same.
entrances in that.
I think that we're putting ourselves in a precarious situation, in just my personal opinion. I'm one person, one vote. But I feel like we're kicking the can down a little bit for lots of things we're gonna need, and we're hoping that the growth that we're experiencing is gonna cover that. And I'm not 100% convinced that that's gonna be true, because with growth comes more wear and tear and more expenses. And really and truly,
And we're
I
wearing
feel
our
like we're
employees out.
kicking the can into a hole that's not gonna be able to be filled if we don't really consider some changes soon. I mean, when we are denying positions in offices like that because we literally can't hire you, can't train you, but we need you, and we're
We don't
saying,
have
we
room
make,
for you.
yeah, and we don't have room for you, we don't have money for you, we're making promises for things. We're in a situation, we're growing out of the capacity to control what our finances are allowing us to grow into without having a different discussion as well, like 2 options or 3 options. Like the only option we're hearing is let's be more conservative. We're covering our assets. But I think regardless, and I want to say I'm very hopeful. Let's say we're very hopeful that this growth is going to cover that, and I'm wrong. I want to be wrong. I don't think I'm wrong, and that's okay. I'm just one opinion, but that's the opinion that I have on that matter. I feel like we should really prepare for the future of a possibility of what may have needed to be done over the last couple of years may need to be done in the next.
But
So
what happens
that's just my
if
opinion.
what happens, let's say, I hope everything continues as it is, but we're looking at inflation right now, 4.2%. What happens if we see a spike in interest rates and it goes up? What's that gonna do to the real estate market? It's gonna be devastating on a lot of counties across the state.
Well, I anticipated, as well as have several international and national experts have anticipated, by the end of 2022, we go back into a massive real estate, almost a recession. I've been saying that for 6 months. That's the numbers that I've been crunching. Owner of Keller Williams International, which I no longer work for, but he's the largest private owner of real estate in the world, and has said the exact same thing. We're looking at something closer than it really is, and saying this growth is gonna cover our assets, and I just don't think it's going to. That's just my opinion.
One more thought before we move along on education. Just, Van showed me all the different places yesterday where massive housing is being built. And, those kids, and regardless, there will be a significant increase in children. And whether, I don't think Lenore City will shoulder the burden of all those kids just up there in their area, so. Those growth coming, but I think we've discussed that enough, so let's.
Well, that's one of our perfect storms that we've been very beneficial from, is the fact that as our population has grown, our school attendance numbers have actually either leveled or went down. And so with the huge developments coming into Loudon City and Lenore City, like I said, I didn't realize it till that point, that one of those is in Plain. You can see Eaton Elementary and North Middle from it.
And during that same time, I'm sure everybody here does know that, but both school systems have increased in rankings 1.5% overall on greatschools.com and niche.com. I mean, parents are going for, they only call, they want a 7+ district. Well, Loudon and Lenore City have both reached over that now, so it's attractive.
And they're doing
So-
a very good job of getting that information out too.
Let me go back, a point that Julia brought up a minute ago. We had this conversation in budget, and this is no reflection, it's just what the facts are. We haven't had a general fund property tax increase since 2007. So the discussion of whether or not growth will balance out your expenditures, it has for 14 years, pretty well. That's not to say if you had more money, we know what happens when government has more money, we spend more money, that's just that simple. But I mean, this is not a maybe, could be, we weathered I mean, that was the height of the downturn last time was 2008. We came through that okay, we've come all the way to 2021, now going 2022, and we've been able to pay our bills. We have an $8 million fund balance. We're adding new people. We are putting one more in Kerry's office. We're putting, I forget, Buddy called them out. So if we strategically and carefully grow with our economy, so far for 14 years, it's covered. So that's, I mean, we're just a growing county. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, of course.
Other little counties couldn't do that, I'll assure you.
Yes, I'm aware.
Yeah.
And that kudos to Loudon County Commission for the last 14 years for doing that. I just think it's always good to have a backup plan, or two, just in case.
Moving right along.
Well,
Mike, can I ask
I'm
you
still
a
gonna say,
question?
I'm still gonna say that, you know, I think that's something that the budget committee
When
really
they
needs
get
to look
approved.
at. Because that is one office that you can definitely see that they are completely overwhelmed. And yes, giving them one employee, I'm sure helps, but their space is gone.
Well, let's look at the 10 million, if we can use it for expansion.
I was gonna say, there's not room for what you got down there now. What are you gonna do if you keep hiring employees? There's no place to put
Yeah,
them.
somebody's gonna have to sit on Tammy's lap up there.
The next step is what?
Vandy's wanting a
I guess
3-story
go
new
out
Vandy.
into the parking lot and find a new parking lot.
Anyhow, next.
Then Commissioner
Do
Duff,
what they make the schools do, put a trailer out there.
I want to ask,
What do they make the schools do?
Mike a question. This is a personal question, and this is a dumb question. Did you, speaking for the, school system, did you come out of this present, government in Nashville and the grants from the federal government, did you come out of this a winner, money-wise?
I feel like the county has come out a winner, yeah. I haven't seen all the tail end of it yet, you know, like Dan says, there's strings attached, but for instance, we were able to buy all of our new English language arts textbooks this year that were $750,000. That's $750,000 I was gonna have to ask commission if we were gonna, and we had deferred it a year because we didn't have the money. You didn't have the money to give us, we didn't have the money, so we didn't buy them, so we were able to buy those. So, yeah, we're getting things in kids' hands and teachers' hands that they normally wouldn't have gotten, and what Tracy was talking about a few minutes ago with her and Chad, and us trying to, you know, you're helping us on the revenue side of the MOE, and we're trying to do our part on the tail end. We didn't utilize all of our equipment money this year because I tapped into some of that grant money, so I'm rolling that into fund balance. Gas prices were down, so we didn't utilize all of our transportation money. I don't think that's gonna be the case this year. But we're rolling some of that into fund balance to help with that. So, in that aspect, yeah, we're getting things in teachers' hands and kids' hands that we wouldn't normally get in them. Now, is it a lot more, heartache on my staff's part to comply with what the state's requiring on the tail end of us getting this money? It's been a burden that way, but as far as a benefit, to answer your question, I would say yes, anytime we can get things, and we're gonna be able to get math textbooks in 2 years at about $900,000, then I won't have to ask you for, I'm gonna utilize that money for. So there's things like that, technology in the classroom that I wouldn't be able to get, and you may not have been able to provide the money for me to get them either, that we're able to use. So yes, I would say overall, yes, sir.
But the reason I asked that, Mr. Mayor, is, that meeting we was sitting in, last week, was singing a different, song.
Looked kinda like when the governor gives the 2% raise to all teachers, but that's only for certain amounts. Once you get above, you don't have exactly.
$10,000, per teacher statewide. I mean, this is all we heard up there at that meeting. But here today, we're not hearing any of that here.
I can probably shed some light on that piece, because the superintendent said the same thing. The governor had said he's done a 4% increase for teacher salaries in this upcoming budget. When you look at the money we actually received, if we tried to pass that on to teachers, which we will try to do in raises because that's the intent, it's about 1.8% with the teachers that we have with our cut. It's not 4%. So I think that's where a lot of, you hear the discontent is the numbers coming out of Nashville are a lot higher than what we actually see when it comes to a practical point.
But well spoken,
It's been that way
that's
for
what we
20
heard.
years.
See, Tasser was supposed to take it up, the new BEP formula, creating a new formula. For one thing, they can't find anybody that really understands how it works. And so we were looking at making a recommendation, and COVID hit. Right before the meeting, actually, the next meeting we were scheduled to have was supposed to be on the BEP. And COVID hit and they canceled it, and we've not brought it up on as far as a video meeting. And so hopefully that'll pop back up pretty quick. But like I said, if we had the bare minimum number of teachers that we were supposed to, then yeah, it's fine and dandy, but
Yeah, you'd
I
get
don't
the
know how many- I don't know.
4%,
Yeah.
but we don't have that
Yeah.
because you're
I
not,
mean, that would just
be
not
cheating
doing
kids if
justice
we
to
did.
kids.
I
Is this a correct statement?
Pro teachers. I spent 40+ years in that capacity, so don't interpret what the question I ask as meaning that I am not teachers, because that isn't true.
He was my first grade principal, and I remember it well.
But look what I made out of it.
I'm not going there.
What a success! Hard to argue with success right there, buddy, I'm telling you.
Mike, I think his statement may be correct. The BEP has 4 components, and of those 4 components, there are 46 categories that the funding is done through. Now, when Dr. Sanders first started out, he had a total of 6 lobbyists in Nashville to make sure he had revenue coming in. And when they put the BEP, or when Dr. Sanders started making his money, it put a lot of pressure on local governments to try to fund, but they didn't know what they were doing.
This is the time.
Is that correct? 46 components, I think, is the
That
last.
sounds correct, yeah, and the 4% is an instructional component.
Yes.
And it's on the base state salary, not on each teacher's salary, so that's where all the
Yeah.
confusion comes with on that.
looking forward to Friday, what about after we get our final discussion in and out? What about if I get Ms. Blair to write us up a quick summary, send it out to all commissioners, and we'll put it on the website as well, just a summary? Is that okay with you, Tracy? That way, when we do.
Like what
come
you
to-
have here?
Yeah, roughly like the first 2 pages.
Yeah.
We can put it on there. This is what the budget committee voted on to approve, and lay it out there, and
What about, are we just totally still in limbo on the public hearing? That's our last big, gotta do it by law sort of thing.
10 days, we got 10 days between public hearing
And maybe we'll take that up Friday also when we discuss when we're gonna have our adoption vote. How about that?
Well, if we're gonna have 2 commissioners out, while we're sitting here, we can discuss it, it's called meeting. Do we wanna go ahead and push it back into the first week of July?
That puts
I'd like to
July
say that.
6th.
That bothers me, because we've never missed one, but.
You'll be all right. We've been all the way up to October since I've been here.
Yeah,
It'll be
I'll
fine.
tell you what,
Tracy loves to go longer. She
Yeah.
likes to just drag out just as,
I do.
really wants to get there as long as we can.
Right now, the public hearing is set for June 21st, Monday at 6 o'clock here.
10 days? or-
That's not 10 days to the 28th.
It has to be, the public hearing has to be at least 10 days after the public hearing notice appears in the newspaper.
That's the appearance of the
All right.
publication.
You want- is that
That's,
what-
that's
how's this
fine,
commission?
I don't have a problem with that date.
I'd love to get it, I'd love to get it on 28th, but I don't wanna sit here, it's in a 5-3 or a 4-4 deadlock all night.
This is big enough. I mean, Tinker, he's a wealthy man. He could fly back in. I don't know if we could ask Satterfield and Adam to fly back in just for a special meeting or anything. 2 outs, that's even a little more for, this is a big deal. It's the biggest thing we do all year.
I thought you weren't gonna be gone.
That's not gonna be.
If I had a
We're
choice,
recommending that
Stan,
go back.
I
We're
would
not
like
good here
every
from the
commissioner
Sure.
here.
Sure, I agree.
And all of a sudden,
So what does July 6th look like?
It's a Tuesday.
Fifth is a Monday.
5th is a Monday, and I've been told it's a holiday. The
It's a
6th,
holiday.
Yeah,
Tuesday, the
we're-
6th.
We're definitely off on the 5th.
Well, there is no holiday on the 5th of July. We didn't declare independence,
Does it have
we
to be on a
didn't,
Monday?
we
No,
don't
it
remember
does
nothing. But the 6th is the
Turns out
Tuesday.
I'll be here on the
Yeah,
6th.
but there's also usually a little bit of a, I don't wanna say hangover, but it's a long weekend, but there's, time you get everything caught up after a long weekend. it's
No,
hard.
no.
We
We've
don't
already
buddies-
given
we
you an
don't
extra
buddies
day
do
to get over
Seventh,
a long weekend.
7th or 8th or the next week.
Or the
We don't
6th.
play.
Why, yeah,
We can do
I
that.
would have
Don't
another
matter.
meeting
I'll
on
be here.
Wednesday night. I'm surprised that this one was held.
Let's do the 6th then. Let's roll with the 6th.
You can do the 7th.
I'm not going anywhere any day, I'm good
Second
any
to
day.
Thursday is an 8th, Tuesday's a 6th, Wednesday's a 7th. I am absolutely wide open.
I'm fine for all three.
Everybody be here the 6th? Let's shoot right now, unless Tracy tells us something, the whole world falls apart, we don't get the certified tax rate.
Adam, where are you going on vacation?
I text you.
Oh, I didn't see.
I didn't tell you where I was going.
He won't
I don't know
tell
whose business
nobody.
that is.
I don't know
Whatever.
Oh, I was just saying that because the
He's
map
gonna
was
be
saying
gone
that
the
he
28th.
drove back, so before.
Oh, I'm not driving back.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Can we ask questions here? And
Absolutely.
it's
This is the
part-
time.
Part of
Yes,
this,
sir.
I mean, we haven't done much of that, but, I had a few.
Yes, sir.
I'll pick one.
Okay, you can ask all of them.
I'll
I'm
save it for.
One's good.
For, the rest of them for later. But, and I'd like to request of the budget committee, when you do your meeting, that you take another look at tourism and hotel motel tax. I request to replace the decrease that was put on these people last year. And, it was taken away from them, at that time. And according to, the state, there's what, 500 people over there with the big dogs from Nashville?
At least.
Yeah, there's probably more than that, that we have a large increase of money that's coming. That's what I come away with, to us, so, I'm gonna make a statement. Money is now available according to the state. So please give my request some consideration at your meeting.
Absolutely.
I think Buddy mentioned that early on tonight. There was more money coming for.
Well, like I said, the part of that 10 million, they're really pushing it for tourism. Even if this doesn't necessarily pass through, we keep it at 120. I think it would be extremely prudent, because we're so limited on how we can spend that 10 million. I think we give tourism, you know, if I had a vote on it, which I guess I will through the budget, not when it comes to commission, to give tourism a chunk of money. And that would be far greater than the 8,000, 7,000 it's cut.
Yeah, Mayor Bradshaw, I'm in the same camp as Mr. Duff. Ford, just did, I mean, I think they do a fantastic job, but that's not, mine is a philosophical reason. You've taken away their incentive to continue to work harder if you do not base their amount of intake on the money that's raised through tourism. And so I would like to see it go back to that formula, which creates competition and gives them incentives to continue to bring in people.
Like we told them 4 years ago we would.
Yes, and I also agree with that.
Let me tell you about the new law that passed this year. I'm sure the tourism people know about this. State passed a new law on the hotel motel tax. That from this date forward, if anybody passes a hotel motel tax, 100% of it has to go to tourism/chamber type stuff. So I would encourage them to speak with the city of Loudon, see if they would pass their hotel motel tax. 4% is the maximum on the new law. So there's one thought of another way to bring in more revenue. There's, I think, 3 down here or something like that. It's the smaller end of it. Little City already has one. But, yeah, that's a new one they passed this year.
Yeah, and I don't know, if, Harold's on, works with them more. I don't know if they need more revenue or less revenue, if they got the perfect amount of revenue. Mine is just a philosophical, capitalistic argument.
You're just a
not
philosophical kind of guy.
Not what I don't like the disincentive for continuing to grow and work.
I support them. My issue is that there's really no support coming from Loudon and Little City. I mean, we give the lion's share
Sure,
of the budget.
yeah.
That's where I have, a problem. So it's not you guys, it's the cities.
Loudon City can do you in a heartbeat and pick you up another several thousands of dollars.
I think regardless of how this ends up coming out, I think when our 10 million comes down, I think it'd be very smart to.
I just give them all 10 million of it.
Ooh, I wouldn't go carry
There
it
you
away.
go. Hey, am I the hero now? Am I the hero?
Yeah, it's easy to say that tonight. He won't be voting for that in a month.
He'll miss that.
He won't be there.
Some
Sounds like a
funding,
lot of fluff
allow them to do
over
some
there.
interesting
What's the
things,
problem?
creative things.
I have a handout for next Monday, meeting. It'll answer a lot of these questions because, it came directly from up there. You've got a copy of it.
I do.
Aren't you gonna include that in our packet information? So
It'll
we'll
be
able
there.
to- That'll be out tomorrow, so we'll have it tomorrow. We can read it all through it
Well,
tomorrow.
that's the thing,
Please read
You
it.
with me?
they want the feds to chisel it in stone and quit tweaking. I
Yeah.
think that's what scares everybody. They'd like to have a set of rules, a set of regulations written in stone rather than, well, let's change it. We'll see what happens next week. Well, we may do it like this, and all of a sudden we get called over the bag.
I know that we just went through COVID, so I guess my question is, last year they were funded at 120,000. If they were getting a percentage, what would their fees, I mean, what would they have made?
That wouldn't be very good this year, would it?
Wouldn't be big.
No, it worked out well this year because of COVID.
Yeah, but if
But what's
if
the
we happen
average?
to do that.
126.
What was it, 197 or 180?
132 is what it was a couple years ago.
Okay,
For the
132.
book.
132.
And then we went to flat
But now, something to keep in mind, which I don't know, we won't necessarily get hotel motel out of it.
So
that right now, Sevier County is the number 4 in the country tourist destinations. And we get a big group of that right off that interstate right there because they wanna come through and get on 321.
And I love that, and I agree with that 100%. And I will say, Loudon County's always been the Lakeway to the Smokies. But here, I mean, since we've had Rachel, it's been a massive increase, and everything that she's done has been 1,000% only focused on Loudon County. She hasn't focused on any other county trying to get out of here and get a better, bigger, working toward getting out and getting to Knox County or somewhere else. She's been focused on Loudon County. And we've always had those cars coming through, and she has increased that, and we've had new leadership in the chamber that's absolutely turned that over. I mean, Rodney, within 2 years, has gotten us out of bankruptcy in a chamber and turned us into one of the most profitable chambers in the area. I mean, this group of people that we have in leadership currently in this situation are moving Loudon County in the same direction to be able to compete on that level. The people are coming through regardless, but the money that's being generated is much better and managed better, and Loudon County has a better visibility due to that.
I wouldn't argue that point at all.
Me either. No, I
Let's
agree.
get money
I
from Mineral
support,
City and Loudon.
I support, the tourism, 100%. I'm just trying to figure out what's the best way.
It seems to be another one of those things that we support that both the cities benefit greatly from, but support very little. And I have a problem with us bearing the huge amount of responsibility for funding when the two cities that I think reap the benefits put very little.
That's where a lot of your sales
And
tax
that's
money comes from.
I'll be glad to match
Well, I-
anything that Loudon City and Lenore City puts in. If that, we'll match anything that they put in, I would vote for that.
Well, and that's the thing, there's not a whole lot we can do about.
No, I'm just,
Loudon
Yeah, we don't see the
City
sales tax,
or-
they hit JB's up there. JB's in the city?
no.
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 It's in the urban growth boundary.
They'll take it.
But they bring, like I said, I'm still a firm believer we get them here once, we'll get them here again. There was a gentleman we talked to, Harold,
I've been sitting here for 30 minutes.
his GPS brought him through Little, he was, I don't remember who he was, he come through Lenore City and 321, loved it, all the way up and got to Wires Valley and had to ride those curvy roads, he wasn't real happy about that. But, you know, he loved it, that's somebody.
Was he on a bicycle?
He better not have been.
I don't think he was. Try to get Harold to go ride a motorcycle with me up there.
Harold? No, don't do that, Harold.
Harold,
Ride
please do not
motorcycle.
be on.
Don't go ride motorcycles.
No, I won't ride next time either.
Call it off.
I'll let you do all the.
Chairman, how are we doing?
motorcycle
Are we about to?
We're doing fine, it's their meeting.
2,500.
Well, I'm open, any more questions and.
So if we move the additional pennies into education, what would be the additional amount that we would give?
Right now,
164,000.
That's what I'm trying to.
We'll shy of 170.
164, is that what you said?
Tracy, can you
But
tell
we're
me
gonna
on
do some stuff
on
with AFT as
nonprofits,
well.
what
Yeah.
section?
Every little
nonprofits?
bit.
Fire
Very end of 3, go to the back of 3, and it's page 94 maybe.
if you go to the front under resolutions, you'll see them in a list, behind tab number 2,
That's an easier one.
and, well, I don't have one, I hope you guys have one.
It's page 90 under
Yes, I
tab
do.
3.
Go to tab number 2, and then your third, like, divided page like this, you say nonprofit. The first one is appropriations resolution, the second is tax levy, and then the last one
Non-profit.
will be nonprofit.
Tax levy. Nonprofits.
Okay, so there's the list of non-profit organizations that the budget committee is recommending a contribution to. You can see the proposal, which that's what the recommendation is. But I also listed current year, just in case you wanted to compare.
I can't look at this because there's a couple on here that just really makes me ill. I'm
Yeah,
not
let's
gonna
don't get
look at
it
You said you wasn't gonna say.
too deep.
About what? I mean, I'm just having a conversation with you.
Mr. Mayor, I think there were some questions on the number of calls that each of the fire departments do. And just for commission's information, ending as of April, Loudon Fire had 74, Greenback had 115, Philadelphia had 46, Tellico Village had 81.
Is that dispatch or response?
That's response.
Is that for the
Can you give me
month?
that again,
That's for the
Commissioner?
month.
Would you let me have that one again, please?
Greenback 115, Loudon Fire 74, Philadelphia 46, and Tellico Village 81.
Does that include medical or just fire or what?
That's
Fire
every,
is all I
I think that's every call, everything they're dispatched to it.
No, it didn't include medical.
No,
What was Loudon County Fire? What was Loudon County Fire number?
74.
74,
How long is that?
Thank you, Greenback.
What's the span on that
Right?
74?
30 days.
30 days.
We see about 60 some odd.
They do a real, the folks over there take, even though they're all volunteer,
Pay for gas.
take it very seriously, and they're always there, they're ready to roll.
They covered more area than even just Loudon County.
They had to replace the tanker just here a few weeks ago, it actually wore it out on the call, so they had to buy a new tanker, but they do a good job, and they're glad to do it, but it just, I'm glad you brought that, David, thank you so much, that just
I'll try to get the yearly figures and bring that
gives
to
you an
this
idea.
Monday.
The key is, amongst the fire departments,
Tellico,
is the
Greenback.
countywide mutual aid for fire. And Tellico Village, Greenback are rolling on most every one of them for distance, and it's costing the fire departments extra money. So the issue comes down, since they rely on donations and county funds, it's an added expense.
Plus,
Well, and-
they have a mutual aid agreement.
Amongst the fire.
So if they did away with the mutual aid agreement and they only responded to the people in their community, you can see how many are gonna be left out without any service.
Right.
That's true.
So, the reason I bring it up, I just would ask the budget committee to reconsider, to look at, your contribution to Philadelphia. It looks like Greenback went from 40 to 47.5, which I'll support 100%.
Actually, this year is 50, went from
Yeah, from
45
to
to
57.
55.
And Tellico Village went from
Went from
50 to 57.5, and Philadelphia went from 35 to 37.50,
37.50.
so they went up $2,500, so I
Have
would
they
They only
ask,
requested 4.
I would ask that you reconsider that to $40,000.
Have they got everything in order as far as the audits and things?
Yes,
And the,
from my understanding, yes.
None of this money goes to the lawsuit, does it?
No.
They got other money for that, I would assume, because they're still in a lawsuit over billing, right?
Correct.
Gary, when will the lawsuit be settled? Do they have any idea?
Are they ever gonna get to use their building?
They hopefully will have a temporary, CO, by the middle of June, is what it's looking like. CO.
Occupancy. Certificate of occupancy.
So I would just ask that you consider that, $37 for you.
Is that all she wrote?
What's for me?
What's next?
Go home.
Tracy, Mayor, any further questions?
That's all I know.
Budget meeting Friday at 10 o'clock at County Building, and I'll call for an adjournment.
When's our next meeting?
Monday.
Monday,
Is it just
That's
on
a
this or is
regular
it back to
It's
a
a
regular?
regular.
that's a regular one.
Have your agenda tomorrow.
Very little longer to deal with.
Is,
Hadn't seen her tell of it. We got any rezones on this in Henry? There's no
Yes, we
rezone.
Hang around,
Yes, we
folks.
do.
Hang around.
3.
Is it on this?
Yeah.
Is it?
5th.
I will.
There's one in the first,
Yeah, yeah.
the third,
Yeah.
hold on.
Here, Henry's telling us.
There's first resolution's gonna be in the first legislative district. Second one's gonna be in the third legislative
That's yours.
district. And it's going from A2 to M1. The resolution on the county commission is number 3, closing a portion of the right-of-way at Old Muddy Creek Road.
Muddy Creek, too muddy to cross.
And then, Buddy has a task board, the Tellico Village tax delinquent lots are there. Changing the planning commission meeting date from Van Shaver. Kelly's got something on the county policy on public records. And Harold Duff has the meeting they were at in Gatlinburg.
Who are you kissing up to?
Tracy's budget amendments.
We don't get anything to see this. You only get yours from the jurisdiction it's in. Now, we get a lot, and of course, they don't last.
Does this one not work now?
Does it?
It's that one.
Hold on.
That one didn't work, try that one.
That's it. Throw that one. Give me that one.
Now you got two.
July 1st, 2019, that's when it all changed. Sales tax was a good revenue, but it's nothing like what it is now. It's all the math.
Hey, Rodney, you still training? Van?